Okay, good afternoon. My name's Andrew Willard. Apologies, I don't speak a word of Turkish, so if you don't understand English, just look at the pictures, and they're really good. And thanks very much for putting me on after the comedy event. That was, it's always difficult to follow some funny people. So Andrew Willard, and I was 20 years director of Asta Power Project, so that's the project management software like Primavera. And during that time, I was engaged in many consultancy exercises where I kept getting asked for S-curves, earned value analysis as a way of monitoring projects. So 2 years ago, along with my colleague Chris Reimer, I set up a new company called Wilmer Limited, and one of the things that we concentrate on was developing some software that allows you to create S-curves from your favourite project management software, be it Asta Power Project, Microsoft Project, or Primavera, just with one click, okay? Because I think if you tried to create S-curves before, perhaps you've had to create time-phased histograms, add dummy resources on, add costs on, export it to Excel, and then have to understand lots of Excel charts and macros to produce those S-curves. So what we tried to do, what we endeavoured to do, was to create an extremely simple way of creating S-curves. And in the year that we've been in business, we've sold lots of copies around the world. USA is a big market for us, the Far East, Australia, South Africa, to a wide variety of industries such as oil and gas, construction, engineering. So Grid Technology are our partner in Turkey, and we're very proud to work with Murat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go straight and show you the software. There's no PowerPoint. So we're going to go and demonstrate the software to you now. So Project Tracker will, as I said, with a couple of clicks, import data from any project management software. So we've got Asta Power Project, for example. So that's Asta Power Project, if you haven't seen it before. Or a P6 schedule. So we can import data from P6, which is the one I'm going to show you today, in a variety of formats. So we can go direct to the database via the SDK or import XER files or XML files. And one of the beauties of that is it means that you don't have to have Primavera on your machine. So it could be sent, if you're a client, for example, it could be sent to you and you could run your own S-curves. And it's extremely simple to do. And because we're importing the XER file rather than export to Excel, I'm importing all of the data. So as well as being able to create an S-curve, we can also look at Gantt chart data. We can look at plan versus actual progress. So there's a little bit more in it than importing just the S-curve. So we're going to do the XER format now. So what I've done, I've exported from Primavera 3 XER files. One is the project. One is a baseline number 1 if you like, which could be your earliest dates baseline, and the second one is the latest dates baseline. But that could obviously be the contract program and the latest revision. It doesn't have to be your earliest and latest, but it's just something to compare against. So we've got those XER files. I'm just going to import. So it imports it very quickly, and it's created for me some curves. Yep, so I haven't had to create a dummy resource, a dummy cost. It doesn't even have to be a cost-loaded schedule. I've got S-curve really quickly. So if you've worked with earned value analysis before, this might resonate with you. You might understand this. But a lot of clients these days are asking for S-curves. A lot of people want it as part of their reporting pack, if you like, when it comes to progress. So if I just take you through what we're seeing there. So I can turn off these curves, and I'm just going to turn off a couple of them. So the first thing we've got is our actual line, and that's the actual amount of duration we've completed. So I said to you don't need to import costs or resources. You can do that. I can show you that type of curve. But one of the simplest curves, the way of monitoring progress, is just monitoring the duration that we've done. Yep. So it's 5 days, accumulates to 5 days in the graph. So you can see here we're up to, it says up there, 22.68% of the way through the plan. So that's drawn up to the data date or the status date or the progress date, whichever software you use. Then we can put on our target line, and this is imported the position of the future activities of the program. So we've got a very simple actual and what's remaining. So it's telling us that we're going to be finishing sometime in May 2015. All very good, and a lot of people just do curves like that actually, because it sort of gives you a good shape to the project. You normally want to see an S-curve, that's why it's called an S-curve, where we start slowly and then ramp up towards the middle of the project and then slow down towards the end. So you're looking for an S shape, hence the name of the application, if you like. So once we've got that, we can overlay the baseline, what our plan was, if you like. So I'm just going to stick the baseline on. And that's the blue line. So that tells me a few things. First of all, it tells me at the moment I'm behind program, because really this actual and target line should track the baseline. But because I'm slightly below it, that means I'm behind program. As we look at the remainder of the program, we can see that it finishes after the baseline, which means that our program slipped. Now, when we're monitoring progress a lot in construction or engineering, I think we just look at where we are today without looking at the impacts for the future. So why people really like S-curves is they graphically show us where we're likely to finish and how close that target line is to the baseline. Yep, so the closer it is, the better it is, but if there's a big difference, we know that we've got some problems. So we can immediately see here, a manager who doesn't understand project management software. If you think of a schedule with 20, 30,000 activities, which isn't rare, it's very difficult to see where you're at and where you're going. So the idea of this is to just give a very quick graphical but accurate view of where we are. So I could stick in my second baseline, which if you remember, I said was my latest possible position, with the task in their latest possible position, latest finish, if you like. So what that's done, that's created what's called an envelope. And a lot of people like to work with an envelope, so the yellow and the blue. And as long as I'm tracking within that envelope, I'm probably doing okay. I don't need to panic too much. If I'm below my latest dates, I'm probably in a lot of trouble. I'm still finishing this project late, but not too bad. It's only 2 or 3 weeks. So we could do something about that. So by overlaying these curves, we can see a lot of information. I'm just going to turn that one off. One of the things you can't do in Excel, if you use that, is, okay, we are behind program here. And we often think, well, yeah, I can get that back on track. That's not a problem. But after sort of 4 or 5 weeks of the project, we're already an amount behind. So one thing that we've built into it is a forecast line, which basically takes the progress, the performance that we've done so far, and works that against the remainder of the project to say, well, where do we think we might finish? So if we were to carry on at the current rate of working, you can see we're going to finish in August, which is not so good. That's like a 4 or 5 month delay. So that's a very useful curve, extra curve, that's produced. Now, I said to you that this is a duration-based curve, so there was no need to add any resources or costs to the program. But because all the information is imported, and you did have a fully cost-loaded program and you did want to do a value, we can do first of all, just let me show you that it is in Turkish. There is a Turkish version of this software, if I selected it correctly. But if I was to demonstrate it in Turkish, I would get very confused. So I'll just go back to English. Whereas the duration was not so good, cost-wise, we're tracking fairly well. And also we can do that on resource. And this is on all of the resources on the project, but you'll see in a minute that we can filter down to look at individual resources. And one way that people use this, if you know P6, you can't really do material S-curves, but you can do material curves in here. So you're moving meters cubed of stuff, A lot of people, mining companies, Australia, like this for the ability for moving material resources. So there's 3, 4 different, in fact, you can do physical percent complete as well. So if you use physical percent complete rather than duration percent complete, you can curve that as well. Everything's configurable in it. We could add some text. So if I wanted to add a bit more information, weather delay, something like that. Make it a bit bigger. So we can add extra information into the curve if we so wish. All of these can be filtered. So this is done by WBS. So the first option is scope, which is your WBS. This is not the biggest project in the world, so it's not going to show a great deal, but why people like Project Tracker. It's all right if I'm doing one S-curve in Excel and it might take me 2 hours to produce it and the boss thinks, well, 2 hours is not too bad. But if I've got to create 30 different S-curves, the time goes up. But because I've got all the information in here, if I was going for a meeting with the carpenters, I can just click on carpentry and I can create a very quick S-curve just based on that element of the WBS, or it might be the carpenters, the masonry people, and the steel erectors. So we can have a combination of filters, as you can in P6 or Asta, to create individual curves, and these are saved into views that can be printed out automatically. So as well as a WBS one, we can do it on codes, for example. So if you use activity codes, so there's just one coding structure here, but again, if we were going for a meeting with the carpenter, we could create a specific curve for the carpenter, yeah, or so we could have a series of S-curves for all the different trades, if you like. And again, we could just do it on a particular resource. So if you're using resources, this could be a material curve or it could be a labour curve. We can do that. So window contractor, for example. And we get our own individual S-curve for each person. So it's all configurable, so I can change the colours of everything if I so wish, which you'd obviously expect anyway. There's one extra line in. I didn't quite understand Kahit's when he was talking in TLOS, but he was mentioning a recovery. I think he was mentioning a recovery line. So if it's necessary to, we can introduce a recovery line, which is the sort of a pinky one in the middle, which what it will do, it will draw it to the baseline date. So if ever you need to not tell the truth to somebody, we can map this recovery line, and that will follow the shape of the work, but it will reduce the amount so that it finishes on time. And even more so, you can even make your own finish date up. So if you wanted it to finish even earlier and really impress somebody, you can change the curve to a particular date to finish a bit earlier. Okay, so there's some more options up here. We can turn off the progress summary, if you like, up the top there. And we can apply weightings as well. That's quite important. If you're doing a cost-loaded or resource-loaded curve, that's easy to do because a more expensive activity is going to impact the curve more. But if you're doing a duration-based one, it treats every activity as the same. So you can apply weightings inside of Primavera or Microsoft Project, etc., to say this activity is more important than the other, and it will. If you do that, it will respect those weightings, so the curve would go up steeper if there was more weight to that activity. So some more interesting things now. We can draw some dynamic status on. So as I move my mouse up the curve, it's giving me dynamic feedback about what percent complete should I be at a particular date, how much it's predicted that I'm going to be slipping at a particular date, and how much work have I done at a particular date. And obviously if that was switched to cost, it's cost. So I should have spent 269,000 of the money at that particular date. So switching between the two is extremely straightforward. So because I've imported all the project data, not only the data to create the curve, we can have a look at the activities as well. So down the bottom here, as I move my mouse along the curve, I'll try and find some, I can see the activities that are occurring. So, you know, that might help me to see, well, look, there's a gap there between the baseline and the target. So which activities do I need to concentrate on? So we're trying to make this more than a reporting tool. It's meant to be an interrogation tool as well, so that we can actually take remedial action, see what's going on, see if we can improve on things. So as I move my mouse up the curve, it's going to tell me which activities are happening at that particular point, along with a variety of information, such as planned start, planned end, early start, early finish, the work involved, the resources involved. So that's all the information that's come from the Primavera or the ASTA database. Okay, we can also put on period figures, which is useful. So this is like putting this into, in this case, monthly chunks. So this is telling me that how much duration have I got built into the plan in a particular period, which is very useful if I've worked out for health and safety how many toilets I need on the site at a particular time. I can see whether that's going according to the plan. Or if I'm looking at a resource-based curve, the numbers of people I'm expecting on site. So we can see in February 15, for example, I'm expecting a lot more than the planned baseline. So I need to check with people. So this is not only curves, it's period graphs as well. And obviously I can add data labels on there to give me the information as well. And all of this is configurable, so I can decide to add in more lines if I wanted week numbers or plan values. I can do. So I can add all sorts of information into the x-axis at the bottom, and we can expand that, and we can drag along, etc. Okay, I won't show you that. We're running out of time. So the final thing that I will show you is that we can overlay the Gantt chart. And this was always one of the utopia, don't know whether you know that word, but it was in the early books about planned progress monitoring, it was always about overlaying an S-curve over the Gantt chart. So because we've got all the information, we can display the Gantt chart, broken down by WBS, and that's highlighted up. We've got the baseline there, so we can see the difference between the plan and the actual, and we can scroll down here. So I guess as well, this is sort of a viewer, if you like. So if you don't have P6 or Astra on your machine, it could be used as a viewer for the project data. We can turn off the baselines if we so wish, turn off the critical path, etc. So all of this is configurable. And all we did, it took 2 seconds for me to import that data from Primavera or from Microsoft or from ASTA. There's a few bits in there, but I think probably difficult to understand my English. So that's the product. Obviously, you can buy it from Murat if you wish. Hope you will. But it just does what it says. You know, it's a very simple application, but a very powerful application, and the feedback that we're getting is extremely good. So thank you very much for listening.